We are live. We are live once again. Twice in 1 week. Not too bad. Not too bad, given the general lack of content on my channel. Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. Thank you very much for tuning in live, those of you who are, and thank you very much to those of you who are tuning in after the fact. I'm very glad that you are spending a little more time with me. Especially given how long it's been. How are you? How are you all? Do chime in the chat to say, because I do love interacting with people live. Oh, well, I know that person. I know Qualia Redux because this is one of the authors on They Came From the RPG Anthology. So, you know, that's... I may be just preaching to the converted with this video. But still worth doing. Hello, MK. I hope you're well. And I hope you're enjoying the Kickstarter as it's going so far. That's right, viewers. They Came From the RPG Anthology is, as of time of recording, I think maybe 60% funded within the first 24 hours, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. For a book this far down the line of They Came From, I would say it's pretty damn good. We're all very happy, and we would obviously love to see it reach 100%, because, well, that's when we can start reviewing things like stretch goals. So tell your friends, make sure you share the link around, let people know that this campaign is going, and what's more, let people know about the quick play system that is inside it. Yes, there are fantastic genres that you will be able to play within. Yes, the Story Path Ultra system is presented in its entirety, but also this is the place to go in order to play They Came From in its most streamlined version. We received a lot of feedback over the course of previous They Came Froms, and They Came From's currently in development, that sometimes the rules seem a bit heavier than are necessary. And I agree. Which is why in the RPG Anthology, which is currently on Kickstarter, we have a quick play rule variant. It's still Story Path, it's still D10 dice pools, but we chop away and we streamline and we make the game just run slightly more efficiently, so that you don't have to worry about it being embedded in a whole full-blown system, because we know that when most people play They Came From, they're not playing them as they do typical RPGs where they want to monitor all the bells and whistles. They are making it almost entirely character focused. And I think that's what the quick play system largely comes down to. It's things you can do as a character rather than the world, the broader world around you. So I see we're getting lots of people tuning in, chiming in the chat now. We have JB saying good morning from Freedom Land to our limey cousins across the pond. I'm guessing that's Norway. Bro Meliad says, I've never heard of this game line. Of course you haven't. Qualia says, well, no, they're just chatting to each other now. Why not? Why not? And hello, Nicholas. Good morning to you as well, all the way over in Brazil, one of my favorite countries. Now, why are we here then? Why are we here at another release in the They Came From catalog? Well, one thing I noticed was we were often getting requests, Onyx Path and myself, to make a They Came From about a specific genre, sometimes highly specific, sometimes a genre that was so narrow in focus that it could never justify a full book in the same way as, let's say, horror from across 2 decades, like Beyond the Grave can, or broadly sci-fi and Cold War does with Beneath the Sea. And so I thought to myself, well, what's the best way of presenting these genres? Because I agreed, I still wanted to see things like noir, I still wanted to see things like westerns and They Came From, but did I feel like an entire core book was required just for those? And ultimately, I decided no, or not just me, my colleagues Onyx Path, we decided, no, what is better is to present these genres as chapters within a book and present you with everything you need to play each of those genres. So we have a Western chapter, we have a noir chapter, we have a costume period drama chapter, we have a Shakespearean plays chapter, and we have a space opera chapter. But that's not all, because we also have 4 empty chapters. We have 4 empty chapters because across the course of this Kickstarter campaign, there will be 4 polls. They will be running, I believe, every Monday. That's when they will start, and I think they will run for 3 days. I think that's the plan. And each poll will have a number of options that you can vote on. And we are taking those options partly from our ideas, but also from your ideas. If you're commenting on the Kickstarter, and this is the place you need to comment if you want your ideas to be considered, if they gain enough traction or if they appeal to my creative urges, will end up in these polls. So you can vote along with the other backers on other genres to get added. And I think this is the first time in a while we've done this Onyx Path. We did it for Dark Eras, for Chronicles of Darkness. But one thing that I'm very keen on is getting these chapters written very quickly. Not at the expense of quality, of course, but mainly because I have worked on other games where backers get input in the content and it can often drag things out. It can add months onto, or maybe even years in some cases, onto a book's development. And I don't want that. Which means anyone assigned to write or contracted to write these new They Came From chapters will basically need to hit the ground running once something is voted in on a poll. I will be reaching out to a prospective author or two and saying, hey, I need this written in X amount of time. You already know how to write They Came From. You already know the system. You already know this particular genre. So you're the ideal person for the job. So we're not going to be messing around. We're not going to be hanging around on this. We're going to be getting this content written. In an ideal world, that means some of this content may even be written before the Kickstarter concludes, but I'm not going to promise that. So I see we've got some questions here. DP says, good morning from New Jersey, surreptitiously from my cubicle. I make requests where They Came From genres or hacks all the time. Yes, I know. And I don't think we can do a Clockwork Orange based on your avatar. What would that be? They came from a Kubrickian dystopia, or Anthony Burgess dystopia, I suppose. You would have to invoke an entire language specific to the game, much like Planescape does for D&D, or I guess, yeah, Nadsat from A Clockwork Orange, or you could use the interesting speech patterns of 1984. So I guess it is possible. It is possible. Now I've got to think about it. But the main question that you need to ask yourself isn't, do I feel lucky? It's whether the genre you want to see can support 5 unique archetypes. Now, that is the big one, because they came from the RPG Anthology's initial concept up till quite late. We still used some archetypes from other They Came Froms to fill in gaps. And I was feeling like, no, I want everything to be fresh. I want everything to be unique. Every single They Came From needs to have its own cast of playable archetypes. Every single one. Not just because I want each one to stand out, but also because I like the idea of crossover, and They Came From is a perfect game for crossover. You can use an archetype, their tropes, their quips in any genre with a bit of wiggle room, though, as I noted on the Kickstarter text, just try putting a galactic marine from They Came From the Interstellar Starship in the costume drama of They Came From Bridgeton Rectory. I'm sure it'll be great fun. Be like a Sam Peckinpah does Pride and Prejudice. So, with all that said, as game designers, we need to think, does this genre support 5 different archetypes that haven't already appeared in existing They Came Froms? And in some cases, we're really narrowing down our options, because we've now had, I think, 2, maybe 3 versions of a scientist. We've got scientists in, and I may get these the wrong way around. I think we've got scientists in Beneath the Sea. I think we've got professors in Beyond the Grave, and a little bit of a hint of what's to come in Interstellar Starship. We've got, I think, techs or technician. So we are very much covering the same kind of intellectual, laboratory dwelling, eccentric type, and of course quartermaster in Classified. So yeah, we've got various shades of the same thing that are specific, bespoke, if you will, for the genre in question. But eventually you run out of nouns for the same kind of job or philosophy or calling or role. And that's what I want to avoid. I don't want any direct duplicates. I need each archetype to channel the genre appropriately. They can't just be the same thing renamed multiple times. So it's a real quandary for us as designers, uh, and that's what might make us stall on an idea that might otherwise seem fantastic. You might suggest a genre that, I guess, on paper blows the bloody doors off. But when it comes down to it, it could fit perfectly within Beneath the Sea or Beyond the Grave or Classified or Cyclops' Cave or Camp Murder Lake or Danger Zone or Witchford Academy or any of the They Came Froms in this RPG anthology book. So yeah, each one needs to be different. And that is a challenge. It's a fun challenge because not only do you have to come up with the archetype, you then have to come up with 5 or more tropes to fit that archetype that fit within the genre they're being presented as part of. So yeah, that is just one of the questions we have to consider as game designers. Now I see we've got some questions here. Nicholas, hello Nicholas, says, Matthew, do you feel like They Came From is becoming a general RPG such as Chaosium's basic role-playing? No, not yet. Because each chapter is so genre specific, I don't feel like it is basic role playing or GURPS or anything like that. I've got nothing against either. In fact, I'm a big fan of basic role playing. It's a system I always enjoy using for games like Call of Cthulhu, let's say. I find it very intuitive, percentile systems, but that's not to say that StoryPath and StoryPath Ultra aren't generic systems. You should be able to use StoryPath for a whole range of different kinds of game. As you'll be able to find out, we obviously do have StoryPath Ultra in They Came From the RPG Anthology. We will also have it in The World Below, and we will also have it in other games to come. So we'll be able to show that this system can be used across multiple genres of game. I have said the word genre now perhaps more than anyone else in the existence of humankind. So what else do we have here? DP suggests They Came From the Dystopian Utopia. JB says, really loved that recorded play session you did for They Came From Beneath the Sea. Thank you very much. Oh, the live action one, I assume you're referring to. It's so difficult to get a group of people together who want to record a live action role play with a camera. Because although that was edited, it was edited to show off how Beneath the Sea could be played. And yet naturally not everyone not every role player wants to appear on camera, and this isn't the same as everyone's faces in a window. That was a recording of myself and my regular gaming group, my weekly gaming group, sat around the table we usually play at and playing a game Beneath the Sea. And yeah, not everyone always wants to do that. So it is, of course, possible if you travel, if you get the right people together, but then costs mount up. It's a really interesting point because I haven't even thought of that in a long time just because it hasn't been feasible. But yeah, I do hope I can do something like that again. Of course, on Red Moon Role Playing right now, there is the first part of They Came From the Mean Streets, Murder Served Hot. They Came From the Mean Streets is our noir chapter from this book, from They Came From the RPG Anthology, and I have ran a 3-part story for the Red Moon Role Playing channel involving 3 of the authors from They Came From the RPG Anthology: M.K. Anderson, Kim Godwin, and Chris Jones. But that's not all. If you are interested in They Came From Cowboys Gulch, which is our Western RPG, I am given to understand that the Old Ways podcast, who, as perhaps the name implies, tend toward Call of Cthulhu. I think they've been doing a very long Horror on the Orient Express campaign, and I think they've been doing some vampire too. They will be doing an actual play of They Came From Cowboys Gulch, set in the Old West, at some point during the Kickstarter campaign. I don't have an exact time or date, but if you follow them on Twitter, the Old Ways podcast, you should be notified when that happens. So yeah, something for you to look forward to. So what else do we have here? Michele says they come at night mostly, says the Marine, when talking about those visiting the upper floors of Oh, very good. Yes, that's an innuendo, Michele. Something else I wanted to ask, says Nicholas. We have Scion for modern mythological adventures. Trinity Continuum Aegis will have the Iron Age adventures. Can you see if they came from game with Iron Bronze Age adventures? Only if Iron and Bronze Age adventures are a movie genre in their own right. I guess we already have. Bear in mind that they came from is based primarily on media. Movies, TV, video games, literature to a lesser degree. And so while we have some Hellenistic mythology with they came from the Cyclops' cave, although that ranges all the way up to sword and sorcery with Conan, and then back again with Xena and Hercules. I don't think I would ever want to emulate a specific era, because unless that era particularly lends itself to a branch of cinema, and I'm sure there are eras that are that are like that, although none are really occurring to me. Usually, you are looking for some kind of motif, some kind of theme within an era, and yeah, they came from the Bronze Age doesn't quite work as a medium, I think, at least off the top of my head. Mikhail, I assume, says, I'm curious. A while back, I and other people helped you make an old clan Zimishi rat catcher turned spy catcher. What happened to this character? I believe that. So I gave that character to somebody to play because I was running a game of Vampire the Masquerade, which I haven't done for quite a while now. And I'm on something of a hiatus from running Vampire. And that character. I was about to say that character died horribly, but you know what? I think they nearly died horribly. They were in a game that involved it was pre V5 ultimately. So there wasn't any Second Inquisition or anything like that. But I did involve some of the story ideas that ended up in books like Let the Streets Run Red, with paramilitary groups in local communities as hunters, so of hunters hunted style, hunter the vigil style opposition. And that Zimishi, old clan Zimishi, was very nearly burned out of their haven. And I recall taking a great deal of damage, but I don't think they were killed. They didn't meet final death. They sank into torpor, and that's the last I've seen of them. But they went through a fairly long arc. But yeah, thank you for reminding me of that, because I had completely forgotten about the character. I ran so many damn games. And I enjoy them all. I love them all equally, but especially that one. I had forgotten about that character entirely. Nicholas says, can I just say that on the Chronicle of Darkness shelf, I love that Promethean is in the center. Well, that isn't by any kind of popularity design, Nicholas. It is that that is the order of release. Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, Promethean, Changeling, and then it starts getting a bit messy because I took Hunter off the shelf. That's down there. Because I was running it and it was becoming awkward to put it in the more narrow shelf. And as you can see, Beyond the Grave has ended up there as well as there, because I have more than one copy of some things. Michele says, to those asking for magical schools in the RPG Anthology Kickstarter, rest assured Witchfoot Academy will provide across the whole spectrum with the same depth of Murder Lake and Danger Zone. And Murder Lake is a very deep lake indeed. Many bodies have sunk down there. Now, what else? What else do we have to cover? Well, I don't want to keep you all day. So one thing I do want to say is we are at Onyx Path. We are hugely dependent on people like yourselves, the fans, people who enjoy our games, giving us your backing via Kickstarter. It allows us to put books into traditional print runs so they can appear in stores. That's essentially what you're backing for. If you don't want to back on Kickstarter, that's fine. These books will be released in print on demand and PDF eventually. But if you want a traditionally printed copy like that, or a lot of my other books, you need to back it on Kickstarter to guarantee yourself such a thing, and also to help fund that print run for other people. Also, Kickstarter is the best way to fund stretch goals. So if you like a particular game line and you want to see more source books for it, back on Kickstarter. And of course, your money will hopefully lead to further books in that line. So that's really the formula. That's what we're looking for. And that's why it is really important to me that if you are a fan of They Came From, or if you want to support me, or you want to support Onyx Path, please do share the link to the Kickstarter in your usual social media places, your Tumblrs, your Instagrams, your Twitters, your Facebooks, wherever it is you go, or with your local gaming group, and you tell them this game allows you to play movies, basically, of any genre, because there will be a ton of genres in it. And it has a full rule set. It isn't dependent on any other games. It has, by the end of it, it will probably have, 45 at least playable archetypes in there. And what is 45 times 5? 225 tropes. I think I may have got that wrong. No. 200. No, that is right. 225 tropes, and it will. I could go on. I'm not going to go on. But there's a lot. There will be a lot in there. So yeah, please do share the love, spread it around, tell people about this game, because we are very grateful for your support, but we do need it too. And if there are genres you want to see and they came from the RPG Anthology, you do need to tell us in the comments on the Kickstarter. That is where we are taking ideas from. You might tell me on Discord, you might tell me on a forum, but I will forget. If you post it there, I will forget, but if you post it on the Kickstarter, it will be there for us to review. So I'm going to be here for a couple of minutes longer. I would suggest 2 or 3 more minutes if the questions have dried up. If you have any questions now regarding They Came From, if you have any questions in general, please do post them in the chat, and I will hang around for a bit longer. But if there is nothing else for you to say to me, then that's fine too. But most importantly, please do click the link below so that you can look at the Kickstarter campaign. Aha, I see. We have another book. Another book? No, we have another comment. DP says, if this Kickstarter is successful, would you think that other genres might come out as individual supplements, or would you think that other genres might work better in consolidated anthologies? I'm not sure. I think there's a chance, because if this book does really well, it basically tells us there's a market for this kind of RPG anthology. On the flip side of that, there are some customers who will say, well, I'm interested in Westerns, but I don't want to play the other genres, so why would I buy a book that contains 9 different genres? We had the same sort of feedback with Dark Eras for Chronicles of Darkness. There are some people, there are some fans who will play anything, and there are some fans of, let's say, Mage the Awakening. And these fans of Mage the Awakening, I'm just using it as an example, will look at Dark Eras or Dark Eras 2 or Dark Eras Companion, and they'll say, yeah, there's some interesting stuff in here, but I only ever play Mage, so why would I buy a book that contains material on Promethean, Mummy, Geists, etc., etc., etc.? And that's a perfectly valid opinion to have. So really, it depends on which side, I guess, where the pendulum stops swinging. Will this book do well? I hope so. Will it fund? I hope so. As I mentioned, we're already over 50% there, and that's within our first 24 hours. So within a month, because this is going to be running for, I think, 27 or so days, we should hit funding. But you never know. You never know how these things go. And if it doesn't hit funding, that's fine. We'll still do our PDF and print on demand version. But yeah, by backing it, you get a traditional print run out of it. Bro Meliad says, any more glossy card printing runs? Oh, like on Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition. That is always possible. Deluxe versions of books, but we have to be fairly confident that that book is going to really sort of sell like gangbusters to warrant that kind of outlay. When we do the leather or leatherette covers, what is it, the lenticular tarot card on front of Mage the Ascension, or glow-in-the-dark font, or werewolf scratch marks and so on, that ends up costing a lot, especially now that the printing costs have gone up. So there needs to be a much higher funding target, and ideally we need to be drawing a hell of a lot of backers. So yeah, I don't think we'd ever see that for They Came From in its current incarnation, but that's not to say it won't happen at another point in the future. Qualia says, do you think we might do a supplement that has crossover genre adventures between more than one genre in the anthology? Now, that is a very interesting idea. Adventures that cater to archetypes outside specific genres. I've said a few times, there's been a few people that have requested a time travel they came from, which is on the table just as any other genre is. But I kind of see time travel as less of a genre and more of maybe an archetype. So you have your time traveler, and then you pick archetypes from lots of different genres, and you play in different genres that are out of keeping with your normal ones. So you essentially become like the Doctor, and a host of bizarre companions in tow. So yeah, it is possible. Yeah, I'll be thinking about that. Michele Masala says they came from Cinematic Universe, should trump the Marvel one. DP says, is there any place where all of the official archetypes are listed and where we can find them in one book and on what page? There is not, but I'm sorely tempted to add an appendix to this book to make that happen. Marley G says, I've got to back it so I can suggest a Kurosawa samurai drama setting. Yes, that is exactly why, because I love the idea of a samurai they came from. I really do, and I love Seven Samurai. I love The Hidden Fortress. I love Yojimbo. Lots of Kurosawa movies in general. And of course, I love the Westerns as well, the Magnificent Seven and Fistful of Dollars, and we could keep going on with the parallels there. The big issue we would have, I think, doing samurai as a specific genre, and I do think it's a great idea. The big issue is when you make actually, no, you know what? I don't think that issue does exist. Okay, well, I've just talked myself into it. Yes, suggest it, Marley G, in the Kickstarter comments. Oh, they came from cards. Yeah. You can already buy They Came From cards on Drive-Thru RPG and DriveThruCards.com. And I would imagine we will be doing cards for the RPG Anthology as well, because there are cinematics and quips in it. I certainly imagine so. So, yeah, at the very least, they'll be available on print on demand. Nicholas says, how about They Came From the Beginning, a game where you play people founding a nation, such as King's United Cities? Again, just to emphasize, They Came From games are about emulating media genres. So if the idea is about setting up empires or founding cities or founding kingdoms or something like that, if there is a series of films or TV shows or video games or something like that that covers that kind of thing, and we can emulate it, we can parody it, we can make satires of it affectionately, then that's a great idea. If it's an idea in its own right, as in for a role-playing game that is not a They Came From, then it is not a They Came From. And that's not me being, I guess, ultra strict. There's a lot of media genres out there for They Came From. But that is to the exclusion, in my mind, of something that is not a media genre. So, for instance, I am a big fan of, let's think of something I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of real world history. One of my favorite things to read, which when not reading fiction, and in fact I read non-fiction more than I read fiction, is, as a lot of people know, things like Russian Revolution history. Now, while I'm a big fan of reading about Russia from 1905 to 1958 or thereabouts, I couldn't really make it a They Came From because it does not summarize a media genre, if that makes sense. So, what else do we have here? Meme.thenode says, I just wanted to say hello and everyone. I think you're all awesome, and I think you are too. Excited for the future, especially Aether. Velvet Tea Cake says, I caught the end. Bank holiday weekend. Perfect time to invest in new RPG. I completely agree. Bro Meliad says, I'm always here for They Came From the Cartoon Network. Well, keep your eyes peeled there, Pineapple, because you will have to see what's coming up in the polls for They Came From the RPG Anthology. Now, with that said, we're running up to 30 minutes. I think that's more than enough time spent on one live stream. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Please do consider backing the Kickstarter. Last time I will ask, the link is below, and I would love your support. and comment on the Kickstarter to say which genres you want to see in They Came From the RPG Anthology. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.